Right. So summer is intense, bright, and fast moving, just like the Pitta dosha. If we don't balance that fire, it shows up in our digestion, our mood can be irritable, reactivity. We could be quick to react and get upset, and we can tend to burn out. So be careful with that. Skin, rashes, inflammation, sun sensitivity. This is for all the doshas across the board. And sleep. If you find that your sleep is restless and you're overheating in your sleep, this could be due to a summertime pitta imbalance. So to stay balanced, we want to cool the fire both physically and emotionally. So what to eat in the summer? Cooling and moistening foods, right? Here's how we counteract the heat through summer foods. So understanding which foods are hydrating for us. We want to look at high water fruits. And a watermelon is one of the highest just in vibration itself, vibrational foods that you can eat. And it's super hydrating. Then adding cucumbers. You can add cucumbers into your water, into your salads, berries, and grapes. So looking for leafy greens, kale, spinach, romaine, lightly cooked for vata. So vatas, note that you might want to lightly cook it instead of eating it raw in your salads, right? So bitter and sweet veggies, zucchini, asparagus, and broccoli. This all, do you see how this makes sense? What is growing right now in this season, in the heat, that can tolerate the heat and is growing naturally in our gardens? You start to think that way. Nature's plan is divine. So natural sweetness, coconut, dates, rose, fennel, and cardamom. So I use a lot of coconut oil in the summertime on my hair, on my skin, adding it to the foods. You internally or externally. It cools both digestion and inflammation. That's really important for somebody who's in a pitta imbalance like me in the summertime, in menopausal type of symptoms, right? So herbs, cilantro, mint, basil, and aloe. So it's important for you to understand what your dosha and your dominant type is. And then you can do like what we're doing here, is looking at what would be the best, but not only what would be the best to eat, but how would I cook it? This is a little bit, something that you want to research a bit further if this is speaking to you. So cooking in the summer, we want to be our cooking to be gentle and not aggressive, less fire and more ease for summertime. So cooking styles that you can use are light steaming or sauteing, just enough to just to soften, but not to overheat. Use water or coconut milk based broth instead of heavy oils. Embrace raw meals if your digestion is strong. So my digestion has always been a problem, and it's never been that good for me to eat a raw food diet. I've tried that before, didn't work. I didn't realize that it was coming back to Ayurveda, my constitution at the time, and my imbalances at the time, but different times. So embrace raw meals, but it's ideal for kapha. If you find yourself a kapha person by constitution dominant, or even moving out of balance pitta, then you can do a little bit more raw. Avoid frying, grilling, or spicy searing foods. So just remembering that fire adds fire. Be careful with that. Okay, so what do we know what we kind of want to eat, and that we want it to be hydrating and cooling and those type of things to offset the heat of summer. But we also want to reduce or avoid just generally in summertime. So spicy heat, chilies, garlic, onions, and vinegar. We want to get away from that. We want to avoid fried or greasy foods that overheats our liver and our gut. We want caffeine. It adds heat, anxiety, and dehydration. So for instance, you got to know yourself. This whole thing is about know thyself, right? I know that I'm not going without coffee. I know that I might be in imbalance and it's summertime. So if I want to have my cup of coffee, which I feel is essential to my well-being, then I'm going to do more of something else to offset allowing me to have the coffee. And so there's a balance in life, and you've got to live and be happy in life. So you find these balances, but now you know how you can offset that, right? And alcohol, it inflames pitta and it weakens the vagal tone. So according to what your daily habits are, and yoga, Ayurveda, nothing about any of this is asking you to change today, like going out and doing a sudden change, because we know that when we make big changes in our life, that it sometimes sets us up for failure. My teacher has always taught me that it's pade pade, it's step by step, one slow step at a time, right? So, your lifestyle is your lifestyle. You've got to be real with that. But how can you add something to offset something that you know that you shouldn't be doing? And then what happens is, yoga is amazing like this. There's a natural occurrence that happens, and that stuff will start to go off to the wayside, which is a beautiful thing. It starts to fall away in a natural process, and your body and your cravings. And when you're listening to your body and your cravings, then you'll start to just veer off to the healthier choice naturally. And that's beautiful. So also reduce or avoid overexertion, working out in midday and pushing your productivity. And, we know that there's certain things that I have to get done during the day, but I can choose the time of day that I go out there and do that. So it would be more early morning or late evening in a summertime to avoid the overheating and the exhaustion, right? It's just using kind of common sense, starting to be aware of what your daily life is like and what is recommended during one season and two for your constitutional body type, right? Uh, so emotional and neurological benefits. So just in general, in summertime,